It began with a thunderclap inside the courtroom. Donald Trump, standing before the judge with his legal team surrounding him, declared that Jasmine Crockett should be jailed once again. His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Reporters froze, cameras zoomed in, and every spectator held their breath. This was not just a legal maneuver, it was a calculated strike meant to crush a political rival and reclaim dominance over the narrative. Trump insisted that Crockett had crossed the line, accusing her of contempt, obstruction, and what he called an ongoing campaign to sabotage his future. His words landed heavy, echoing against the walls and reverberating through headlines within minutes. Social media erupted instantly. The phrase, "Trump demands jail," trended worldwide. Supporters cheered, seeing him as a fighter who refused to bow to critics or so-called enemies of his movement. Opponents recoiled, stunned at what they viewed as a dangerous escalation, a former president weaponizing the justice system against a sitting congresswoman. The scene was raw, chaotic, and impossible to ignore. Crockett sat silently for a moment, eyes fixed forward, refusing to flinch. The silence only made the tension sharper. For a split second, the world wondered whether she would retreat or explode. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, adjusted the microphone, and delivered a measured response that sent shockwaves through the room. She said she was not afraid. She said no courtroom threat could silence her. And she vowed that if Trump wanted a fight, she was ready to strike back harder than ever before. Those words became the spark. Overnight, clips of the exchange dominated television and every corner of the internet. Analysts compared the moment to a political earthquake, calling it the beginning of a battle that would not just decide the fate of two individuals, but the direction of America itself. The courtroom drama did not erupt in a vacuum. For weeks, Trump had been sharpening his attacks on Jasmine Crockett, portraying her as a relentless critic who crossed every line of respect and legality. His allies amplified the narrative, declaring her words dangerous, accusing her of sowing division, and hinting that she belonged behind bars. Conservative media outlets ran headline after headline, framing her as the face of chaos. Meanwhile, Crockett was no stranger to confrontation. In Congress, she had gained a reputation for her fearless tone, her cutting cross-examinations, and her refusal to let powerful figures hide behind polished speeches. Every clash with Trump or his allies only elevated her status among progressives who saw her as a new voice willing to challenge the untouchable. Her defiance in the face of his attacks made her a symbol, hated by some, admired by others, but impossible to ignore. When Trump moved once again to have her jailed, the stakes skyrocketed. This was not just courtroom rhetoric. It was an extension of a broader war between two visions of America. On one side stood Trump, wielding his influence, legal maneuvers, and a base hungry for retribution. On the other side stood Crockett, defiant, fiery, and armed with words sharp enough to wound even the most seasoned adversary. Commentators filled the airwaves with speculation. Could Trump succeed in turning the legal system into a weapon against his loudest critics? Or would Crockett transform the attack into yet another stage where she thrived? Even within Trump's circle, whispers circulated about the risks. Some advisors warned that pushing too far against Crockett could backfire, turning her into a martyr. But Trump dismissed hesitation, doubling down in his familiar fashion. Attack harder, never retreat. As hearings resumed, the world's eyes locked on this duel. It was no longer simply about evidence or procedure. It was about power, survival, and who could dominate the national conversation. From the moment Trump renewed his demand to jail Jasmine Crockett, the courtroom became a battlefield. His lawyers launched into a blistering tirade, accusing her of obstructing investigations, of fueling unrest, of wielding her congressional seat as a shield for corruption. Every sentence was designed to paint her as dangerous, reckless, and undeserving of the public's trust. Crockett did not wait long to respond. She rose with her trademark sharpness and unleashed a counteroffensive that cut straight through the air. She accused Trump of trying to twist the justice system into a personal weapon, reminding the judge and the audience that silencing political opponents was the tactic of dictators, not Democrats. Her words landed like heavy blows, each one forcing murmurs and gasps from the crowd. "Every time he feels threatened, he calls for a cage," she declared, her voice unwavering. "But this is America. and I will not be caged for telling the truth." The room erupted. Trump scowled. His lawyers demanded order, but Crockett pressed forward. She brought receipts, documents, transcripts, statements that she said revealed Trump's attempts to intimidate and manipulate behind closed doors. She laid out patterns of behavior, connecting his courtroom theatrics to a broader strategy of fear. The clash spilled far beyond the courtroom. Cable news ran the fiery exchanges in loops. Hashtags like Crockett versus Trump and No Jail for Truth dominated social media. Supporters of Trump countered with their own slogans, branding her reckless and lawless, calling for justice. Protesters gathered outside, some chanting for Trump's victory, others raising signs in defense of Crockett's defiance. In interviews, Crockett doubled down, repeating her line that America was not a place where truth-tellers could be thrown behind bars. Trump's camp, equally unrelenting, promised to push harder, hinting at new evidence and greater pressure to break her resolve. The battle lines were drawn. Neither side showed weakness. Each day brought new revelations, new arguments, new sparks that kept the country hooked on every update. What began as a courtroom demand had transformed into a political inferno that refused to burn out. The moment of reckoning arrived when Jasmine Crockett finally unleashed the strike she had been holding back. After days of verbal combat, she stepped to the microphone with a calm steadiness that signaled something was about to explode. The room fell silent. Even Trump's attorneys leaned in, sensing the air shift. Crockett began not with accusations, but with evidence. She produced documents that she claimed connected Trump's legal maneuvers to a network of donors and advisors who stood to benefit from silencing her. She read out names, dates, and transactions that painted a picture not of justice, but of vengeance. Each revelation landed like a thunderclap. The gallery gasped. The judge leaned forward. Trump's face tightened as whispers surged through the courtroom. Then came her hammer blow. She accused Trump of orchestrating a pressure campaign to intimidate witnesses in unrelated cases, declaring that his push to jail her was nothing more than a smokescreen to hide his own vulnerabilities. "This is not about justice," she said. "This is about fear. Fear of accountability. Fear of me standing here and saying out loud what he cannot bury." The room erupted in chaos. Trump shouted that it was a lie. His attorneys demanded the record be struck, but the damage was done. The headlines wrote themselves before the hearing even ended. Crockett exposes Trump's secret pressure network. Outside, the reaction was volcanic. Supporters hailed her as fearless, finally cutting through the noise with devastating precision. Critics of Trump argued that she had revealed what many had long suspected, that his courtroom theatrics were cover for deeper schemes. Even neutral commentators admitted the impact was seismic. Trump, usually the one dictating the energy of a room, suddenly looked cornered. Crockett had not just defended herself, she had flipped the trial on its head, forcing Trump into the position of the accused. Her strike back was harder, louder, and sharper than anyone had expected. It was the climax of the battle, the moment where the power dynamic shifted, and the man who once commanded fear was now fighting to regain control of the stage. In the aftermath of the explosive clash, America was left divided yet electrified. Trump's demand to jail Jasmine Crockett had ignited a storm, but her refusal to bow and her devastating counterstrike transformed the narrative. What began as an attempt to silence her ended with her standing taller than ever, refusing to be broken. Television anchors called it a defining moment, the kind that would be replayed in documentaries for years to come. Trump's supporters doubled down, insisting that Crockett was reckless and dangerous, but for millions of others, she became a symbol of resistance, proof that power could be challenged even by those it sought to crush. Her words echoed long after the courtroom emptied. "I will not be caged for telling the truth." That line became a rallying cry, chanted at protests, printed on posters, shared in endless loops online. It captured not just a moment of defiance, but a vision of resilience in the face of overwhelming force. Trump, unaccustomed to losing control of the stage, vowed to continue the fight. He promised appeals, new evidence, and greater pressure. Yet for the first time, the aura of invincibility around him seemed cracked. Crockett had shown the nation that he could be confronted, and that even the loudest threats could be met with louder truth. The confrontation was no longer just about one man and one woman. It became a mirror of America itself, a struggle over what kind of nation it wanted to be, one where fear ruled or one where defiance in the name of truth could still prevail. As the dust settled, one thing was certain. Trump had tried to jail Jasmine Crockett again, but this time she struck back harder. And her strike echoed across the nation, leaving a message that no gavel, no headline, and no threat could erase.